I made a new film. It's called Unstuck, The 5 Steps to Change. It's a 20-minute film about my journey and also the lessons that I've learned from some really amazing individuals over the past few years. I graduated college with $97,000 in student loan debt in 2010 and did the smartest thing I could think of at the time. I bought a brand new car. And so with about $117,000 in debt, living in my parents' basement, I'm pretty miserable. I'm not really happy with where my life is going. But I took a few steps that put me in the right direction, that helped me on a journey to get out of debt, to get some freedom. But not only that, to do meaningful work, to create work that I was really passionate about and I really, really cared about. As a part of that journey, I made a documentary called Minimalism with some really good friends. And the journey of making that documentary was so difficult. And there were so many challenges throughout the entire process. But I got to speak with some and meet with some amazingly intelligent people who, surprisingly enough, had been through a lot of the same struggles that I had been through. So there were a lot of elements of these interviews that I didn't make its way into the film, but I thought would still be useful and helpful to people. So what I did was I made this film called Unstuck, where I used some of the deleted interviews, the extended interviews that didn't make it into minimalism, as well as interweaving that with my story to tell a little bit about my background. So I think you guys are going to like it. This film is, if you want to watch it, it's exclusively for my newsletter subscribers. So if you go to mattdavella.com, that's mattdavella.com, you can check it out. Another thing, if you could, so this podcast is advertisement free. It's always been advertisement free. It's going to continue to be, especially because it's really small right now and not many people listen to it. So even if I did put out advertising, I wouldn't make much money. But anyway, I would like this podcast to grow. I would like to, share some of these stories and these messages with more people. And one of the best ways that you guys could help out is to leave a review. So we've got about 19 amazing, generous people who left a review on iTunes for the Ground Up Show. If you could follow suit and just share a couple words, what you like about the show, that would be incredibly helpful in getting the word out. My guest today is Joe Nation. He is a man that wears many hats. He's a director, DP, editor, filmmaker, and YouTuber. He's the creator and star of the 2015 film Bob Thunder, Internet Assassin. It's a fantastic movie. It's totally over the top and hilarious. Oh, real quick, actually, I forgot to mention this. There is going to be no video on this podcast. I recorded video, and then about halfway through, Joe noticed that the iris shut on the camera. I looked at it, and then the card was corrupt, and there was nothing that we could do to save it. No point to start recording from that point on because it was already halfway through the episode. So that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes you make mistakes. Sometimes there's failure. So there's going to be no video on this episode, but we'll get back to video on episode 24. So without further ado, this is episode 23 with Joe Nation. Joe Nation.
What's up, man?
Welcome to the show.
I like that beat. I was about to start freestyling, but I don't freestyle.
There was one guest I had on, Elliot Ashby, and he brought some heat. He brought some bars.
Yeah. I think I actually saw that.
Did you see that one?
Yeah.
And then he said, we're not going to finish this episode unless you spit bars.
Oh, no.
And then I said, sure, I'll spit bars. And then I did, and then I cut it out of the episode because it was the most embarrassing thing of all time. We were just talking before this, like, hey, do you edit anything out of the episodes? Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah, to protect yourself from embarrassment.
It's usually when I'm the idiot, but I will protect my guests if they say something that they want me to cut out.
Yeah, can we say bad words?
You can say bad words.
Great, cool.
Anything, anything you want.
All right, perfect.
And I won't bleep it out.
All right, perfect. I love it.
So, Joe, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah,
appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
I love the name.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great name.
It's completely real.
It's totally real.
Born with it.
Yeah, I feel like I need to rebrand. I feel like I need a name change.
No, you have a great name. I think it's strong.
Yeah. Are you happy with it? Has the Joe Nation, has that aged well for you?
Yeah, I think, well, it was kind of like a work in progress because it was originally, when I started my YouTube channel, it was Joe's Nation. But then I just adapted Joe Nation because my real name is very, very white and very boring.
What's your last name?
Anderson.
Anderson.
Joseph
Nice.
Anderson. So it's
Wow.
I had no creative
You sound like a Matrix agent.
I know, right? Yeah, everybody would say that. I'm like, okay, cool. I get the joke.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, Anderson's just so
Yeah.
boring to me. I can't connect to it. But I haven't legally changed it.
It's good though, but what's tough about my last name is that I have the apostrophe in there.
Mm-hmm.
And the apostrophe, I don't know how it works from like a public personality standpoint, but it's really hard checking into hotels. It's really hard, like last name, and then I have to spell it out every time. Every time over the phone, D apostrophe A, V as in Victor, E-L-L-A.
You ever think just to shortcut it, just for
take the
convenience,
apostrophe
just
out?
take it off?
I feel like I don't have a say memory, and I'll forget who I cut it out of. And
let's
who I
say
didn't.
Dave Lala or something.
Yeah. Everybody pronounces it wrong, but I want to talk a little bit about what you do now, and then we can go back and talk about your story.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, tell me about what you've been up to.
Up to now, well, let me see. Where do I start? I'm a random guy. I guess a good starting point is I did a movie two years ago, and then after that I went through this weird phase, and then now I work full time for a YouTube channel, Phil DeFranco, and I'm a documentarian, and I film behind the scenes of the building of his company and whatnot, and I just film all like the people in the office and whatnot, and I do like really random fun games and just weird gags just to keep it interesting because we upload 3 videos a week on his secondary channel. So I'm just a guy that's going around filming people, annoying people, and
yeah.
So it's
putting the camera in
fun.
people's face.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have a lot of creative freedom.
Yeah, because I guess my background has been always I've been a creator like from the beginning of like the start of YouTube. So I think what this has allowed me to do is create my own content in a sense, but for somebody else and within their in their boundaries and whatnot.
So talk about getting started out. You went to Towson University in Maryland.
Maryland, yep, Towson University.
And so were you always interested in film before you went to school? Is that what you knew you wanted to get into?
Yeah, so I used to make videos with my brothers with our VHS camera back in the day. We did like this skit called The Restaurant, and we just make like weird contraptions and weird, strange food. And we would never eat it because it'd be like Play-Doh or something weird. But yeah, I started with my brothers making videos. And then from there, that transitioned over to middle school where I started making it with my other friends. And then high school, and then in college. So I've kind of always had it. So it was always kind of just like something fun that I did.
Yeah.
But then when I went to college, I thought I was going to major in psychology. And like thinking that I could bring some type of brilliant, amazing like theory to psychology. So then I finally smartened up my sophomore year. And I was like, screw that. I'm going to stick to film because I loved it. So.
Maybe you learned something through the first couple of years of psychology. It's like,
there's something wrong with me.
like, holy shit. You figured out what was wrong with you, and then you changed majors.
Exactly.
So I'm curious because talking about some of those early videos you made with the VHS and the weird food stuff, I'm curious about some of your inspiration because when I think back to the videos I made in high school, and it was prank videos. So Pranked was big for me. Jackass was big for me.
Yeah.
And maybe I wonder even if Fear Factor with the food stuff might have been an influence. What were some of those early inspirations for you?
I think my brothers had a lot of influence on me. They were really into weird things like Garbage Pail Kids and Naked Gun. So I think that sense of humor and whatnot always stuck with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, whenever I'm asked that, I'm always kind of stumble because I just can't really latch on to something that was very specific to me that I was inspired by. Like my brain doesn't tap into something like, oh, it was this. So I'm not sure where all those things came from, but it's probably influenced from whatever my brothers were into. Because I had 2 older brothers, so I was always looking up to them. And
I think that's it. Everybody wants to look back and say, what was that pivotal moment that changed your life? And it's it's really epic, and it makes for great film, and it makes for great interviews, but it doesn't always translate in reality. So you went to Towson, and then a couple years of psychology, and then you are now going to become a filmmaker.
Towson, I graduated in 2006, so I started in 2002. And and that was, I was always making my own videos, and I had this little Canon camera that shot 15-second videos at like 320. And so it was really crappy quality, but I was like, it's a camera, it's a little video camera at 15 seconds to get the shot. And I just I started making all these random videos with it. And I think the first series I made with it was called Joe vs. Joe, where I would chase myself. And I made 3 of those episodes. And I was just making my own stuff, and it wasn't a requirement or for a class or anything. And I think that's what kind of stuck me out, is that I was doing projects, but I was also like, I'm just going to do my own thing at the same time.
Yeah, and that's so important. I did the same thing. So you're doing these projects outside of class, not even for class.
Yeah.
Sometimes probably overlapped a little bit. Did they?
Yeah. Well, I think my mentality behind the class, or behind me making my own content, transitioned over into those classes, because I took like film 2, where I was supposed to make a film with actual film, and I was like, screw this, I have a crappy little digital camera. This is when I upgraded to like a mini DV camera. I was like, I'm gonna make a mockumentary with this little crappy camera, and I'll splice in a little bit of film, like, film work. But that was kind of like that little bit of a rebel in that sense.
I kind of like that, because I certainly I took a couple film classes. I didn't do film school. I did broadcast journalism, broadcast television. But the film classes were a different breed of people. They're like the purists. Anything digital, they would be run away from. Yeah, sorry, we can't do digital.
You have to do it like this.
Yeah, for no reason. The classes that you were taking, did you see that you doing it outside of class, that gave you a leg up than the people that were just kind of going with the flow and doing the regular syllabus work?
And I think especially at that time, it was before DSLRs, so our only access that the school gave us was film cameras. Or they did have, I think at the time, XL1s or something like that. So, but a lot of people weren't really renting them out because there was only so very few of them. So again, I was just taking that little camera that I had, filming as much as I can with that, and I guess also taking whatever I would film and create, I would start to connect to what I was learning in class. So then I would take those tools and start to apply them as well, like exposure and stuff like that. Right,
you learn a little bit here and there that you can pull into it. The access to the technology, I think, is a really good point. And I think it's probably starting to change. A lot of these schools, they probably have more equipment and more gear, and it depends what school you go to. But still, I think there's no way to separate the fact that having the equipment yourself is way more powerful.
Totally.
Because maybe I'm lazy, but I think people in general are lazy. And like, if you have the camera right next to you, or if you pay $1,000 to buy a camera, you're gonna be way more incentivized to use it and to create projects and do it outside of class.
Yeah, and I never wanted to rely on anyone else. And for me, when I was making my own stuff, I would be in it myself, just because I didn't want to bother a friend. To be like, hey, can you act in this? I was like, no, I just put the camera up on a tripod. I say a couple lines, and then that's why I created Joe vs. Joe, because it was just me in front of the camera.
You didn't have any friends.
I didn't have any friends. They thought I was really weird. So it was just the way to go.
That's really hard though, to film yourself.
Yeah, it is.
It's so challenging. Even right now, doing this, you double check it 100 times,
and then you look and
then you shoot a whole thing, and then you go back and edit it, and you're like, I was out of focus the whole time.
Done that before.
Yeah.
Biggest pain in the ass.
It's a lot of, I imagine, guess and check, and then screwing up, and then fixing and correcting.
Definitely.
What were some of the early videos that you made? This is still in college, that maybe stuck or were kind of made you feel like I really enjoy this. This is something I could do.
I made, going back to the film course, Film 2, where I was required to make a film with film. I was in a small group of other guys that we had to team up with. I think there was about 5 of us. And I just took the lead on the project, and I ended up creating a mockumentary called Styrofoamology. And in college, I worked for an event staff, so we would be kind of like security for events all around the campus. And I met this guy named Randy Brewer, and he was just like this off-the-wall character. Super hilarious. I think he was like a vet or something. I have no idea. And he would talk about all his crazy stories, like drinking and drugs and like women and stuff. Typical like old school like black guy. It was so funny. And I was like, I want to make something with this guy. So I sat him down one day, and I was like, you're a Dr. Styrofoam, and you believe that styrofoam is the future. And it was just supposed to be off the wall and something so stupid. And he sold it. He just grabbed on to, he just improvised, and he never acted before in his life. No shit. So I ended up making, it was a 15-minute mockumentary about how styrofoam is the future. And it's one of those projects where, the quality's horrible. But if you watch it, it was very entertaining from start to finish. And because he pretty much latched on to whatever internal character he did and just rode with it.
Was this project screened in class ever?
Yeah, it was screened as my film too in a huge stadium.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did it do?
It was like very well received. I was
that's
I love
amazing.
that feeling where I was sitting in the way back and waiting for it to start, and it was crazy because right before I was trying to export it on mini DV and I kept getting an error, and I literally had to go within 5 minutes, and it was my last opportunity to export it clean because you had to do it live, right?
Yeah.
And from the computer into the tape, kept getting so many errors. It was my last chance to get it, and it like nailed it.
Holy
and I
shit.
made it just in time.
That's amazing. And that feeling of showing a project in front of a crowd, it can change you, and it really depends on the crowd reaction and the audience reaction as to how it changes you. Because I've had projects where this was actually element where I did some YouTube videos back in the day, 2006, 2007. I made a video. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's called Produce Paradise.
No.
Yeah. So I made a parody rap video called Produce Paradise in like 2007. And it was about me and my brother just rapping about produce. This was kind of like the dawn of the parody rap videos, right?
Totally.
It started to take off. And we did this video, and then we got fired from the grocery store we worked at, where my dad actually worked as well.
It was free promo, though.
Yeah. And then we got sued for $7 million.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that was bad. And then that kind of made it popular because then it got a couple 100,000 views on YouTube, and we were on CNN, American Morning, and all this live TV. It was an insane, surreal experience. And then we were like, this is it. Like, we're going to be famous. And then it just like fizzled away. And then everybody stopped caring about us.
What happened with the lawsuit?
And we were still getting sued at that point. It was a long process. We got lawyers to represent us pro bono. A year or two went by, probably about a year. And then we were able to settle the lawsuit and get everything organized. But it ended up being a lot of money spent and a lot of stress, especially for...
I've been in that situation.
Yeah, it's so stressful. And for the people around me, like my parents were super stressed out. Like my mom got like some death threats, not to her, but like threatening to poison our produce. Like, I'm going to poison your boy's produce. And she's like, not my boys. So it was a crazy experience. But the whole reason, the point of bringing that up is that we tried to do a comeback video, right? Like, you got to follow it up.
Yeah,
how are you going to come back with it? And it was a Eminem parody, cleaning off my produce.
That's all. Is it still online?
That video is not online. I don't know if I ever put it. I think I did, and then I removed it quickly because when I screened it in class, I got 0 laughs, and I was like, "This is bad." And I don't think that you should always just take people's feedback to heart like that. Sometimes you got to experiment. And,
Oh yeah, totally.
But I think it was probably good feedback from me. It was just a bad video. Have you ever had such a bad reaction to a video that you were like, I should probably take this down?
There have been a few videos that I've uploaded, and then after I've watched it, I was like, this doesn't need to live there. And before even getting anyone's reaction. So, but no, I think on the internet, it's never really been a bad experience of uploading something and then kind of seeing how people react to it. And sometimes if they didn't like it, I kind of just brush it off.
You have to.
Yeah.
Was LA always the decision? Was it always you were planning on moving to LA once you decided to be a filmmaker?
Yeah, I think in college, I had a professor, Danny Mindlack, and he was always a fan of my weird videos that I made. And he was telling me, he's like, just leave. Like, you don't need to be here. And a part of me wanted to, but I knew that my parents would have been very upset. So I just stuck out college and just learned what I could, even though I didn't really, looking back, I feel like I really didn't learn that much. And so then after college, I graduated in 2006. I worked for 2 years for a director DP. And that was a great experience because then I really learned like hands-on experience being on set and the technical things and whatnot. And then, I just saved up enough money to just move out here. And I'd never been here before. I just packed up my car and left. And I think my goal was just I enjoyed making content and then in hopes that I can just continue doing that. And that was a blessing too, is because YouTube had just started around that time. And even my professor told me, he was like, hey, there's this site called YouTube where you can upload videos and, it's, don't worry about the copyright right now and whatnot, because I was using copyrighted music. So I started uploading my videos there and getting a little bit of traction. But then, when I came out here, it was just, I just started diving into that community more.
So it was probably good that you came out here with quite a bit of experience.
Yeah, that was my goal, is to like learn as much as I can with that job that I had. And then I would have a lot of knowledge to be able to apply it. And I even got like a camera. I got like a Canon XL H1 or something, like the really nice Canon mini DV camera at that time.
Right. Oh, the all-in-one. Like I had my first professional camera was the XHA1, which was, I think, Oh, that's what you had?
Yeah.
That was a sharp camera.
Yeah, it was
That's
great.
a great camera.
So yeah, I just I learned whatever I shot whatever I could with that.
Yeah.
And that's was my selling point too, because I started working with YouTubers. It's like, I have this great camera, I can shoot your videos.
It really is a huge selling point when you're good and you can shoot. So is that what you started to do? You started to reach out to some popular YouTubers?
Yeah, actually, I found a Craigslist ad for somebody looking for them to shoot their videos, like shoot and direct them and stuff. So then I started replying to it, and this was Brittany Louise Taylor, and she was an old school YouTuber, and she still makes content now. She was like, oh, I already found somebody, but if something happens, and I'll let you know. And I was like, I will murder kittens if you don't hire me. I was just like, I just didn't care,
Yeah, and then, did you actually say that?
Yeah. I could probably pull up the email.
You send like a photo of you with a kitten.
Yeah. But yeah, after a while, I mean, she sensed that I had a weird sense of humor and whatnot. So I think like 2 weeks later, she said, hey, it didn't work out with the other guy. Do you want to come shoot some videos? I mean, I just did it for free.
Yeah.
Just for the experience. And then it was great because she would throw me in the videos, and then I already had my own channel. So then from there, we were kind of like swapping audiences.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And then through her, I met a ton of other YouTubers and creators.
So that experience of working for free, was that obvious to you? Because I think it's kind of difficult. Some people maybe come out, especially if you're coming out of film school, you may be like a little bit high and mighty, like, hey, like I need to get paid for my work. Like I have $100,000 in student loan debt to pay off. So it's kind of hard from the beginning to work for free.
Definitely a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that I have that helper's heart where I just like to help people. And then I also think, well, my payoff is I get to collaborate with people. I'm keeping busy. And then I'm also being at the forefront of this new website and this new, I guess, movement of creators. So for me, it didn't bother me. It was like just buy me lunch. And then if she were ever to get, sponsorship money, she would throw me a little bit too. So from there is where I kind of gained traction. But the curse part of it is that I did that for so long that I forgot my own value. Mm-hmm. And it was hard to be able to work with other people and be like, and set a price to and value yourself. So at that point, it became a struggle of I need to make money, but how do I start charging people?
Transitioning at that stage is really difficult, mm-hmm. and it's actually there's a lot of parallels today. So you hear a lot of content creators that have trouble monetizing and making money, whether you're a podcaster or a YouTuber. It's not always easy to turn even a large audience into cash flow and into something that's sustainable and profitable. Yeah,
especially nowadays. I mean, back then there were thousands of people on YouTube, but there was like a handful that were like at the starting of it that actually were just making content strictly for an audience. And I was very fortunate to be at the beginning of that with all these other creators. But yeah, now it's just so oversaturated. Anybody can upload a video, and it's very difficult.
What was it like back then, YouTube? The kind of videos that are getting uploaded, the ones that are getting reactions?
It was just a mix. I feel like at that time, if you were just known in the space, you could upload anything, and people would just freak out. I mean, people do that now,
yeah.
But back then, it was even more so, just because there was very little people doing it.
YouTube. When it first started out, it was like a gold rush, right?
Yeah.
Where it was like, holy shit! Like you can get a lot of attention. You can. It was becoming easier and easier to upload videos, like Pokemon theme song video, just going crazy.
Yeah.
Like a couple people built entire channels on one video. Basically, that was the idea back then. I think it's starting to die down, though. I think a lot of people, and especially clients, would be like, "We want to make a viral video," but that seems like it's so that idea's been around for so long. I think it's starting to die a little bit. But then it was like you could hit gold if you put, and that's probably what I was trying to do back then. Was like, hey, let's do Produce Paradise, hit gold. Once this goes viral, then we can keep making videos and keep doing comedy.
And that's the scary part about the whole viral thing, is because we have so many now studies of what does go viral that people start faking videos. And I think especially recently with a lot of pranks and whatnot, people are getting a lot of backlash because they do put out a certain piece of content that they know will go viral, but they also are faking it at the same time.
Ooh, yeah, there's a lot of big controversy now.
Yeah, and there's a lot of misguided information too, and those people are kind of also ruining what people have worked so hard to build up, which is like, being an independent creator. They give us a bad rep.
I think it's the same thing that drives clickbait.
Oh yeah,
with
totally.
News articles.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of I think it's the intent behind it that's the really important part, because with the clickbait, if it's just for like top 10 reasons why James Franco's a stud, it's like, you know what you're getting. You know you're getting just some like obnoxious article that's probably not going to add much value. But the articles that kind of go under the guise of adding value, but then are just really intended to pull you in. Where they read, a lot of times with news articles, you can't really do this with YouTube videos. You might be able to in terms of sharing it, but they'll have 20 different names for an article and then publish it 20 different times.
Oh, geez, so keep changing the name, whatever. It's
just crazy. It's just the people are so like hungry, and it's companies mostly, I think, that kind of drive that, at least from the BuzzFeed, the Mike.com listicle type websites. But YouTube's a different animal because I guess it's heavily commercialized now too, right? Where you have the personal influence as well as companies that are funding some of these channels. So how did your channel evolve, Joe Nation?
Yeah, so it was, like I said before, it was a mix of collaborating with other people, and then just creating consistent content, which I wasn't always very good at. But I think back then the collaboration part was something that I tried to focus on, and that's when I created a series called YouTube Assassin. And I was like, how can I make a series of videos to keep consistent, and I can collaborate with people and then make some high quality content and just release it and see what happens. And so then I started making this series, but it was just like a lot of work, and I became very inconsistent just because I put, like 2-3 works into one video and whatnot. But from there, it's like I felt like I was at the beginning of YouTube, but I just didn't do it very well. And I was able to gain like a big audience for a couple of years, but I didn't know how to sustain it. So that's where I kind of ended up dropping off a little bit.
Right. I think because you have 350,000 subscribers on YouTube. Is that really important? It's how you capitalize when it starts to take off. Yeah.
I don't think I did. I think for me, it's I started gaining a lot of audience, and I would upload a video and get hundreds of thousands of views. But the consistency was my issue, is because I was trying to keep the quality high or be creative, or I would only create when I was inspired. And I think that was my biggest thing that I just did wrong. It's because I should have just been constantly creating, constantly feeding the beast, the people that want to consume your content. And my friends were always like, just make anything. And that's why they went beyond and succeeded, is because they just knew that if they were just consistent, kept creating, that they would the fans would just keep coming back.
Yeah, and I think there's an element where maybe you have high standards too, where you want every video to be perfect and want it to really kill. There is an element to that where I think is very important. And I think about this podcast in that way, where it's like, I really want to make each episode really, really good, really high quality, because you never know who's going to be listening. And if that's going to, somebody's going to click and say, hey, I really like them. If you have one episode that just is kind of shitty and blah, then you're like, fuck, I fucked that one up. I shouldn't even release it. But I think it's probably more important, the consistency, like you said. Just keep going. Yeah. You have a bad day, you have a bad video, bad episode, just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And then over time, I think an audience will get to understand who you are and the kind of stuff you're trying to make, and then it doesn't matter as much that you have a shitty day or a bad video.
Yeah. And I think it's also too is when you push yourself to create even when you don't want to create. And that's where you start to break down barriers of your creativity, is because if you're always just waiting for inspiration, you're always setting a certain limit. But if you really don't want to create a video and you just say, I'm just gonna go for it anyways, you end up surprising yourself. And I've done that. I used to do that a lot. Like when I first started, like the Joe vs. Joe and all these random videos I made, is that I didn't think. I would just like, I'm gonna start filming. I don't have a game plan. I don't have a shot list. I'm just gonna go for it. And I think that's what carried me so far. But then when I moved out here, I just started thinking too much. I was like, I want to wait to be inspired. I want the lighting to look good. And it's just,
Stephen Pressfield has a really good book called The War of Art, where he...
I've read that.
He names it The Resistance. Mm-hmm. It's just the thing that really cripples you. And the only way to overcome the resistance, and it's really procrastination, it's everything that stops you from doing the work, is to sit down every single day and do the work.
Just do it.
And it's so important, like you said. Like, it doesn't matter how you feel. You have to just keep making and keep creating.
That's exactly it. And I still struggle with that today. I mean, I think anybody would. It's just...
Yeah, it's very easy. Like, it's very easy to talk about this stuff. But the fact is that it's always going to be a challenge, and you're always going to be pressured from your own mind from not doing the work. And you just have to keep doing it and keep pushing it out. What are the kind of big ways in which YouTubers took off in those platforms. It seems like you said there was a lot of collaboration, so it's kind of
Yeah.
lifting each other up in a similar way that a lot of bloggers took off. It's like they created these partnerships and
Yeah, a lot of collaboration. And then nowadays it's tough because somebody can collaborate and be in your video, and people they don't care as much because they've kind of latched on to who they watch and whatnot. But yeah, it was just people experimenting, making different types of content, and yeah, I don't know. It's just like it's just grown so fast, so quickly. And I'm still trying to figure out like what was that breaking point for everybody. But
how has it changed? Like today, YouTube versus 2006, 7.
I think it goes back to anyone can create, and anyone can kind of create something that it could just be one video, and if you know how to leverage that one video, let's say like one video goes viral for you, what someone needs to be able to realize is to leverage that one video and then continue to create, because just because you hit one doesn't mean that you're going to be able to keep growing if you're not constantly, again, feeding the beast.
Yeah.
So it just...
That's it's the resistance, man.
Yeah.
And I see that with a lot of my comedian friends, a lot of friends that create video content. They're very hesitant to put stuff up because there is the best people are perfectionists and that really want to make every video or every project amazing. And that is such a good trait to have.
Yeah.
But it needs to be balanced with put it out there.
The thing is hard work will always trump talent. And so if you're saying I'm gonna make it based off my talent, but someone who's going to work 10 times as hard as you is going to like surpass you. So if I spend like hours, like days on one video while someone spends days on making 10 videos, they're working a little bit smarter. It's like making coffee. Like I could spend an hour on on one coffee and give it to one person, or I could spend 1 hour making 10 coffees, and then those 10 people will tell 10 other people, So
right. But then also in that same process, you are getting better. You are working on your craft. And so you're simultaneously building an audience while getting much better. And then, 100 videos in, you're going to be much better than somebody who only made one video that spent like 100 times the
It could be an amazing video, but
maybe exactly. And that's actually a balance between big projects and small projects, where it's like, when is it right to take a leap and say, hey, I'm going to spend a year or 2 years working on this one film or this one project.
Yeah.
And you know a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So you transitioned and took the YouTube assassin into Bob Thunder.
Yeah.
Internet assassin. Fantastic job, by the way. I watched it this morning.
Did you?
Yeah, it was really good.
You lied to me.
Yeah. I loved it, man. I thought it was great.
Oh, thanks.
Really funny. Over the top. Dude, you really put, in terms of talking about the detail and the attention to detail. So there's so many jokes that people might not even see first glance. You know what I mean? It's just peppered. It's peppered throughout.
Yeah.
So that experience must have been crazy.
It was very crazy.
Yeah, let's talk about it. How did it come about?
So I made the series in 2010, and it was a 6-episode series. And altogether, if you lay them down, it was about an hour. And I pretty much did all of it myself. It's self-funded. And a lot of shots I've shot myself, and it's just me, on camera on a tripod. And then, of course, I've asked friends to help out. I had my neighbor, who's never held a camera before, shoot random montages. But I was like, you know what? He's never shot before. He might be able to add like a cool element to it. So I pressed record, gave him the camera, and he would just shoot. So I just had whoever helped me, whoever I could have help come in for a day. I had like 6 different DPs on it, So it was just using as many resources as I could. Just to get this huge collaboration done.
That was the film, was 6 DPs, or was this the?
Oh no, this was the series.
The series,
yeah.
Right.
So it started with the series, and then at the time I was working with Relativity Media. I was promoting some of their movies and other things that they were doing, and they saw it and they were like, "Hey, this is a really interesting project. Have you ever thought about making it into a film?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course."
yeah. Funny you ask.
Yeah. So fast forward to 2014-15. I wrote the script, which was like the darkest year of my life.
Oh, wow.
And then we shot it. We shot 2014, released in 2015, and we changed it to Bob Thunder, Internet Assassin. And it was originally going to be like a continuation, but it was 5 years later. So I just kind of retold the story of, the story is I'm a struggling YouTuber, Joe Nation. who hires someone to help me, collaborate and become famous on the internet. But what I don't realize is that this person is a murderer. Yeah. So instead of collaborating, he ends up killing all the people that I want to work with.
Collaboration.
Collaborate.
That
yeah.
was the main point where everything changed in the movie. That must have been so much fun. Also, like you said, very dark. And I know the feeling, how a project that you love so much and you're very passionate about it, it can get tough, and it can be very difficult to keep moving forward. Yeah. Did you get it funded before the script, or was the script written and then you got it funded?
Everything was like in the works, so I don't think I can't remember. I think I had written the script, and then from there we were going to find funding. Yeah. And the funding was like $250,000, so it wasn't that much.
So I started watching it, and because I didn't know it was a funded project, I kind of assumed going into it that it was an evolution of the series, but it was also kind of in that same style. Mm-hmm. And then very quickly, as a filmmaker, I don't know if any other people could recognize it, but it's like obvious that there was money that went into this, and you're seeing so many different actors, and you're seeing the color and the special effects. It's like like a little bit of a step up from the series in terms of the special effects. It's like there must have been a lot of money, and I was curious about how you went about getting the project funded.
So I worked with Relativity Media, who had a bunch of contacts. So it was I didn't have any experience getting funding. So I was glad to have them kind of back me up, and they were the ones that knew where to go and whatnot. So from there, they just had, I don't want to get too, I don't want to get into details, but they had a contact. They were like, oh, this guy would be interested in funding your project. So yeah, from there, the script was written. It went through a couple of revisions. And then actually, the company Film On is and Alki David, they funded the project. He plays like the villain. I thought it was unique because we wrote his company and him into the movie. Yeah, that was really interesting for me to watch the film and then to dig in a little bit and research, and I see the logo at the end of the film. And I'm like, oh, Film On. Well, actually, I looked up. There was a Bob Thunder website, I think, that it wasn't working. It was like missed opportunity. You should have got that domain. Is it the Bob Thunder Solutions?
Yeah, .com.
I got the website, but we never made it.
You never made it. Because I do that with everything. If I see a website in a movie or a TV show, Breaking Bad, I'm like, I gotta go and find if that's actually a website.
Yeah, we were originally gonna do that. I was gonna take phone calls and stuff.
Oh, that's so good. That'd have been so funny. And you could turn that into a podcast.
Yeah, that's true. That'd be really good. Solve all your problems.
That'd be really good. The Bob Thunder podcast. But I was really fascinated to see, and I was like, I saw this company, and then I was like, looked up the founder of the company, and I was like, that's the villain. Yeah, it's the villain of the movie. It's really cool how that worked out. So for people that don't know much about filmmaking and the industry, $200,000 to $250,000, very small budget for a film. What's the average budget for an indie film like this?
Oh, I was told that we could have made the script that I wrote with $1 million. We need $1 million minimum. It's because we shot it on the Blackmagic camera, only just for budget reasons. I wanted to shoot on the Red, but we couldn't. I guess set pieces, we had to pull so many different favors. So we got a lot of places for free. Mm-hmm. Nobody worked for free. Everybody got paid.
That's great.
Not many people. I mean, they get paid too well.
They got paid.
Yeah, they got paid. But we tried to be fair with everybody. Yeah, as best we could. The stunt people probably got the most just because they were in the most risk. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was just a lot of favors, and I edited it too, just because there was a very little budget.
That's a massive amount of savings, I imagine.
Yeah, and it definitely took a beat. I definitely took a bit of a beating from it.
How many hours a day would you be cutting?
I think I spent probably 6 months in my apartment on a laptop.
Wow, it was on a laptop.
Yeah,
with the Blackmagic. Was it lagging?
Yeah, I had some issues. Now the computer barely can edit 1080 footage.
Yeah,
on a DSLR.
Was it 1080p or was this 4K?
Yeah, it was ProRes 1080p.
Jesus.
Now Christ. I look back, it's the Blackmagic was. I wish I just shot it with the GH4.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get that depth of field. If you look at the series and you look at the movie, there's definitely a different feel and tone to it.
Yeah.
It's just because it didn't feel as cinematic. Mm-hmm. And so that's where... But it was tough because in the first one I had more control, and this one I had to bring on a DP. And we just had different styles and whatnot. And I had to trust that we got the shot because I couldn't always review. And so
you wrote it, and then you're directing it, and you're starring in it.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to do.
Yeah.
How was that process? Because directing to me it would seem almost impossible to do it while acting, but obviously a lot of people get away with it and a lot of people do it.
Yeah, I think I took all the tools I learned from just making YouTube videos, and I made it like a big YouTube video. And I think that's how I got through with such a skim budget. So, oh, sorry, I don't mean to cough right now.
It's all good. You just turned into Bob Thunder and you started coughing.
Bob Thunder coughs. I just had to do a lot of prep. So I would have the script. I'd have a shot list. I have certain notes of how I just wanted to execute a scene, and I would execute it in a way that we could shoot 12 pages in a day, and. Yeah, it was definitely tough. I don't know if I'd ever do it again. Like if someone saw it and they're like, I want to make another one, which I have an outline for.
Yeah.
I would definitely do it differently. I'd probably have someone else direct it, and I'd just be part of like the writing and just be in it. But I would definitely step back from the directing because it is so much to take on so many different hats.
And would you do another low budget project like that, or would you obviously it's ideal to have a big budget, but then if the right opportunity came along,
I would probably want to do a little bit more.
Yeah.
A little bit more. But
I feel the same way with minimalism, because we actually didn't have a budget. We paid for it ourselves, and that was probably, it's hard to say because there's the costs that become blurry after you create it. But I mean, honestly, like, so I shot and edited everything. I had a couple friends help out with color and the music and stuff. But maybe it was like 30 to 40,000 for just like all of production and post production. But then once you start promoting it and pushing it out there, it racks up so quick.
Yeah. Real quick, I don't know if the camera's iris shut. I don't know if it's.
Oh shit!
Did it stop?
When did it shut off?
I'm not sure. I just glimpsed at it.
You're not having any video on yours. What the fuck?
Oh no.
This is why I used to have like monitors set up here. But I'm like, I've never had a problem before. So if you're keeping up on the podcast, you've been listening. The video stopped recording on Joe's camera, so I just stopped both cameras. That's the first time that's happened.
You know what's funny? I'll mention this is that ever since I was a kid, I've always pushed out some type of energy that would fuck up technology. So my friend, we used to play like video games on his computer. He'd be on his computer for like an hour playing games. And he's like, hey, you want to play? Sure. I go, press the keys for a minute, computer would crash. Almost every time.
What? There's this guy. So I said I worked at this grocery store. It's called the A&P. His name, we called him Alien. And anytime he would put a watch on, the watch would stop. Like that's a real thing. Like you get around technology. Does that? I imagine it doesn't happen with cameras, right? You're filming it.
I've had some luck with cameras, but it's something random that'll happen.
Oh man, that's crazy. Maybe that is. I don't know. I'm starting to believe.
Yeah. How much did you spend on all this equipment?
Too much, man. Yeah, right. Like much more on the cameras than the audio stuff, and that's the only thing that's working. Yeah, so that's a bummer. Normally, like I said, I have some monitors set up where I can watch and make sure. Actually, in Brooklyn, I had my friend Conrad. He would help out, and he'd come by, and that way I wouldn't have to look at it. We kind of wire in another room. Don't have any friends in LA yet that are willing to. Man. Yeah. So cool. We're gonna get this podcast back on track, and we're just gonna do audio only from this point. So we're talking about the movie.
Yeah.
And the process of making it and directing it and being involved in it. So in terms of you had funding for it, not a lot, but enough to get the job done, and obviously it grinded you down quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
But in terms of finding the actors, producers, getting the graphics effects, and like finding the people to do it, as well as like directing and organizing all this, did you do much of it, or was it?
It was a mix. I mean, we brought on a producer, and then he had a lot of connections, so he referred a bunch of people. Then I pretty much trusted him to bring on those key people. And then for me, like the stunts, I knew who I wanted to work with because they were on YouTube as well. They were creating their own content. So they were called the EMC Monkeys. So right from the start, I was like, I want these guys to do all the stunts. And again, it was trying to keep as much within the community as possible. And yeah, it was a mix. Producer referring people, and then people that we brought on referring people, and then me also just the connections that I had as well.
The good thing about being from that world of do everything yourself, shoot, edit, act, everything, it really helps you when you're trying to make something on a budget. So while it can be really frustrating and really difficult to pull off, it's probably the only way you would have been able to make it, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it would have been very difficult to get $1 million budget for a project. You could have made 4 that film.
Yeah,
the
totally.
budget you were on. In terms of the editing, it took you 6 months to.
I think it was about 6.
6 months. Wow. So are you at this time, and even while you're doing the YouTube videos and building your channel, are you making much money? Are you making any money?
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, like, because when you're working for 6 months, I imagine you got paid from the film, right?
Yeah, I got paid a little bit from the film, and then I was always pretty smart with saving money, so I had money saved, and I was like, this is my calling. This is gonna be it. It'll at least bring me to the next step. You know, I didn't expect it to make me like a millionaire or anything like that, and it definitely did not. But I just put all my eggs into it. I pretty much, the money that I made allowed me to sustain whatever I could to finish it, because I know that nobody else would have been able to finish it, because nobody wants to work for free, and I wouldn't let anybody do that. So yeah, at the end of it, I definitely took a hit, but it was my passion project, and I believed in it.
And then
it was rough. It was definitely rough, man.
I know exactly how you feel. And yeah.
And then I guess also having so many hats in it and editing it, I would kind of lose track of like if a scene worked or not. So this is where it gets really interesting, is that I didn't give up on it at all, but I said I need to step away. So we need to find some type of budget to bring someone on to at least do a pass on it and work their magic on it, because I can only give so much. And so we rounded up some money, and then we brought on this production company, and I will not say who they are. And we gave them the footage, and I walked them through it. I said, whatever creativity you can put into it, what this film needs, blah, blah, blah. They had the project for about 3 months, and then thinking that they were going to, say, hey, we should film this scene, or we should add this element to it. They didn't do anything. At 3 months later, I look at what they did. They did a couple special effects, and that was it. And so I was in a really awkward position, because they never had signed a contract, thank God. But I had to go in by myself, because everybody had kind of just vanished, and I was still working on it. And I said, I need my hard drive back, give it back. And it was like, it almost turned into a fight.
Wow.
But no, I mean, I wouldn't let it escalate to that.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those things where I was like, I need my film back, because you guys are delaying and you're not doing anything. You're not going to give me what you had promised me. So yeah, that was just another hurdle. I went through so many hurdles to get this done. But yeah, I needed that to happen, because it gave me like my second win to be like, I'm gonna make this film. So
what did you learn from that experience?
Working with them?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's like being out here in LA, it's as much as you want to trust people, you seem like you can never find the right people to trust. And people will sell you on something, and then at the end of the day, they might not live up to that expectation. And it was a huge disappointment, because I really, since I've done so much, I really wanted people that I can rely on, because I felt so betrayed so many times in the creation of this. So it would have been nice to have a team that had my back, but I still felt like I was starting over.
That's what's so important about finding people that you can trust,
yeah,
and that you really enjoy working with. It's very rare, I think. You have to put yourself out there. You're going to get burned. And it becomes more and more difficult as you do bigger projects, that the stakes are so high. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, that's why a lot of times you're like, oh, just do it myself. Yeah. Because like you trust yourself. Like, I'm going to get the job done. But when you do find those people, you got to hold on to them and make sure that they're taken care of, and that they know that you appreciate the work that they put in.
That's the only way to grow.
Yeah. You hope you don't have to learn the hard way. A lot of times I'll have mentors who can kind of coach me and guide me before I get to those points. And early on, when I started freelancing, I wasn't getting paid much, but I would do some projects, say one with MTV, and I would just never get paid. And that happened a couple of times, to where the point where I was like, all right, well, now I got to start asking 50%. And thankfully it was a couple $100. It wasn't like big stakes at the time, but that was like learning lessons early on, where you get burned a little bit, but you just hope it's just not big. And sounds like it was a big one, where you have 3 months set back, and then did they keep the money? Like, how did that work out? Or did you? No,
I ended up saying, I had them show me what they did. I was like, this is not worth the amount that we're supposed to pay you. I was like, yeah.
That's just, oh man. And that's one of those things, I think part of that might be communication, though. If people are going to fuck you, they're going to fuck you no matter what. But where I've had some projects that I could have probably remedied it, or like problems where if I was just overly communicated with people and be like, show me what you did now, and then check in like every week. But sometimes it's hard, and sometimes people don't cooperate.
And you put an expectation.
Right, you're like, well, this is a legitimate company, right? That's the problem. It's like expectations. You have to be careful about where you set them, and sometimes you can't get out of it, and sometimes you get burned. But yeah, in terms of the making money off of it, so you did make some money from that. But how did you make a living throughout this whole process of like before the film? And did you do a lot of freelance work?
Yeah, I was doing a lot of freelance work. I was living off of pretty much YouTube content. So I was getting a good amount of views. So brands would reach out to me and say, hey, can you promote our product in one of your videos? So then I would have, like a rate and whatnot, and I'd make a video, and it was good money. Yeah. And then also like the YouTube AdSense and partners program. So yeah, for a couple of years, that was my bread and butter. And then I would always do freelance work and shooting for other people and stuff like that. But yeah, so then after a while, I was like, I really want to do this film. And then, that's when.
Oh, okay. So that's when it transitioned.
Yeah.
And then film finished up. You said there was a little bit of a limbo period.
Yeah, definitely a limbo period because, and it's excuses. It was on me. It's like I needed to leverage what I just did, but I don't think I didn't know what to do after that because I was so drained. So I didn't leverage what I had created. And I was kind of also in a transition of, do I want to spend 2 years on one project, or should I instead of focus on creating a bunch of small projects? Because for me, it's like I completely neglected my YouTube channel, and that's where my audience just kind of went away. So if I upload a video now, I'll get like 1,000 views. It's because nobody's there. So
kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
Just how that works because that happens with Facebook. It happens with every other platform, where if you just don't post for a certain period of time, the algorithm just swallows you, and then they just don't send videos to those people anymore.
Yeah, it's just like going to a coffee shop. If they're closed for a day, you're like, damn it. You go back, they're closed, and you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna find another coffee shop, and then maybe you'll go back eventually. But yeah, it's like if nobody has something to come back to, they're gonna find something else to entertain them.
Right, and I wonder if. Because part of it is getting the notifications right from YouTube that you just uploaded a new video. So I wonder if you just kind of bulldozed for a year, uploaded a video every day.
Dude, I would have been,
I wonder how that would work, and if YouTube would start like sending people back to you. But I feel like it probably would be just starting over.
Yeah, it would be a start over. I mean, it's very tough nowadays because you need a team. You need a team of people to be able. Yeah, I think you could still do it depending on the content that you make. Like if you're just mostly a talking head, but if you want to make either sketches or do a little bit something more involved in production quality, you definitely need a team.
In terms of keeping the quality up and keeping it going, because you're talking about multiple videos per week, especially in the sketch and the comedy world. Because I don't think you can get by with just doing 3 sketches a month.
No.
And like if you really want to make good stuff, that's probably as much as you can do by yourself. You know what I mean? And like, it really depends, especially if you're starting from scratch and you're not doing anything, you're not getting paid to do it. That's what is really difficult.
Yeah.
How do you break into the market?
I think you just have to know what works. And right now what works is vlogging. So people vlog every day. You know of Casey Neistat?
Yep. Yeah, he's huge.
Yeah, he's awesome. He created a new style of vlogging, and he did it every day for numerous years. And then what the algorithm is, which is constantly changing on YouTube, is longer form content and uploading consistently. So whoever is able to do that, like gamers blew up because they would sit there for an hour and play a video game and chop it up into 10 videos, and they have or like 6 videos, and they have 10-minute videos. So then they rise to the top. So it's constantly always changing.
That's been a pleasant surprise for me, and a pleasant change, is the fact that people are more and more interested in longer form content, because the quick short videos, they kind of drain on you a little bit, and there's only so much value that you can push into a 2 to 3 minute video, and there's only so much truth that you can push into it. Like if I had a podcast where it was 3 minutes long, how like genuine of a conversation, it's just gonna be sound bites. And there was if you know Dave Rubin.
Dave Rubin.
Yeah, he's a YouTuber, and as well as the Rubin Report, the political commentator. But he was talking about that, where he's like, I think just people got drained and were like tired of the short form stuff, and they were just ready for like an hour, 2 hour long show. And that's where you see Joe Rogan with a 3 hour podcast, and people listen to it. And like,
I listen to it.
Yeah, I listen to it too. And like, you just have diehard fans, and he's amazing, dude. Just over 1,000 episodes he just hit.
Yeah.
I
He knows
like
what he's doing.
you don't I think appreciate what he does until unless you try to make something that's a couple hours long. You're like, fuck, man. Like
he does multiple in a day, I think, too.
Yeah, he's
That's
done.
crazy.
Yeah, every once in a while he does 2 in a day.
Ugh.
I've done that maybe twice. I get tired after one episode.
Yeah, I'm like sweating right now.
I know.
But
I'm like,
let's keep going.
Yeah, let's do it. But you lose 6 hours of podcasting in a day, and it's like the stamina to maintain that, and also to have something that's interesting and engaging. It's really difficult. But I have liked seeing that, the fact that people want longer form content, because it is. I think it allows you to be a little bit more authentic or a little bit more real than you would.
Less edited. And
yeah. So at what point did you start working on the channel Philly D and working with Phil DeFranco?
That was about a year ago is when I started there. And I was, after my film, I was doing some freelance work. And then I'd known him for a while, since, like 2010 or so, just being in the same YouTube community.
Yeah, people who don't know who Phil DeFranco is.
He has a YouTube show where he does the news every day. So he focuses on like 4 stories. And then he'll pretty much state the facts on both the left and the right, or just provide the facts, and then he'll share his own opinion. And he's been doing that over 10 years now.
Wow.
So yeah, he has his main channel and then his secondary channel, which is what I run now. It's another editor. So
so you run this channel, over 1 million subscribers, a lot of behind the scenes kind of really talk about that authenticity. You get a feel for how people actually are and their personalities through that forum. When you first started doing that, was there a pressure knowing that these? Well, did you start with 0 subscribers on that channel, or was there a lot?
No, he had been running it for years because he's been around for so long. So I guess it started off as like a personal, vlogging channel, and then he's been through many different, growings through his business and whatnot. So it's always been there, and I think he's had a few people who would run it, and they would create content and whatnot on it. But I think he just really wanted to rev up and to start being more consistent with it. So then he just brought me on to do it. And yeah, it's definitely been fun, definitely different from what I was doing before. But I've always liked to create new things and try new things. Like I've done a little bit of everything, like music videos, and I've tried vlogging, and I've done a feature, I've done web series. So doing the more documentary type thing is been a change. But I was like, let me try to do it.
Do you have a preference, and is that the direction you see yourself going, doing more and more behind the camera, more doc stuff, less on camera?
Yeah, I definitely like the documentary style, and I think for me it's after doing my film and doing a narrative and something that is a created story. I was like, there's so many stories that just exist by themselves, and like why spend time trying to formulate like the perfect script, perfect lines, when you can just go out and film somebody doing something awesome and then create a piece of content around that. So that's what kind of in the direction that I would more like to go. Like what you created is something that I would love to create. It's awesome. Like I was like, right. That's actually why I hit you up. I was like, this is awesome, man.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You did a great job on minimalism, right? Or minimalist.
Yeah. Everybody calls it the minimalists. I don't care.
It's because it's a Twitter handle.
Yeah, it was like Bill Burr talked about it on his podcast. He called it the minimalists, and that everybody said, I could give a shit less. Like I don't really care.
It means the same thing.
Call it whatever you want. If you watched it, it makes me happy.
Yeah, man, like we've been talking about me so much, but it's always like, I mean, I saw your work and it's great. And I tried to dive into Catalysts, which is your company, right?
Yeah, so this is me, but it's that was a learning lesson that I had early on with my freelance filmmaking. And before minimalism, that's all I did. I worked with a lot of startups and tech companies and local TV commercials. Like I did it all. I did bar mitzvah videos and wedding videos, and I graduated college with $100,000 in student loan debt.
Oh, fun.
So yeah, it was a lot. So for me, it was I was motivated by that, and I was very motivated. I love the self-development stuff. Tim Ferriss, Tony Robbins. I'm just like I
dive into that stuff.
Yeah, I'm a junkie with it. So I'm it kind of pushed me forward, and paying off my debt was a huge goal for the longest time. Yeah. So so making money was an important part of that process, but it was never making money for the sake of making money or making money so I could buy nice things. It was literally all my money just went towards my debt, and Catalyst allowed me to make more money because people will pay more money to a company than they will to Matt Diavella videography services.
Yep.
And I learned that pretty quickly, and it helped me to scale and to kind of create something that was larger than myself. And while it was just me running the company, I had other people that helped out, and I had 2 to 3 filmmakers that I would hire for every project.
That's great.
It helped me to grow, and so that's what I'm doing now, is kind of transitioning from doing that types of freelance filmmaking work and doing just more of the original content. And I think the partnerships is a huge thing, which you found, like working with Phil, is like it's you have a skill and something to bring to the table, and if you can partner with other people that have stories and that have an important message, that is one of the biggest ways that you can connect and get your message out there.
Exactly.
It's just finding the right people that share the same values as you do, because there would be a lot of people who have great size audiences that I wouldn't want to work with because their message is maybe a little bit flat or doesn't really connect with me in that way.
Totally.
So minimalism was like you were saying with your project, it was hard.
Yeah, because you did everything on it too, right? Didn't you edit it?
Yep. Yeah. I edited it. I produced it with a few co-producers, Josh and Ryan from The Minimalist, Jeff Marla and Dave from a company called Spire. And I was the only filmmaker going into that project.
Wow.
So I was the only one that had experience in that realm. So we would go to a shoot, and it would usually just be me, Josh, and Ryan, and they would be there asking questions, and I would be filming. Sometimes they wouldn't be there, and I would be filming and interviewing. I'm sure you've had this experience before.
Of course. Yeah.
You ever done it with 2 cameras?
While you're filming with one of them, trying to keep it flowy.
Yeah. You get the close up with one where you're kind of moving it, and you're like, "Hey, listen, I'm going to be probably looking at this camera and not paying attention to you."
Look here. At
Just look where I was.
Look at that computer in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Like, look at my shoulder is what I would normally do. But then it always ends up being, they have this weird gaze to them. It ends up not coming across in the best way. You got to patch it up with B-roll. But it was an experience. It was really challenging, and during the middle of it, I loved it and probably mostly hated it.
Oh, yeah. No,
it was the worst thing I've ever done.
Yeah. You would wake up and you're like, God damn it, I got to film this whole scene. How the hell am I going to get through it? And then you get through it, and it's the most satisfying feeling. It
is. Yeah. Once you're done with it and push it out there, I don't think there's anything that matches that. And then just hearing from people, and the fact that some people have been affected by it and it's helped people has been really great. And actually, one of the reasons why I started the podcast was because hearing from other filmmakers and creatives who were just getting started out. And I was like, man, I think a lot of people have misunderestimate how much of a budget we had, how much of a crew we had. And I think it's mostly, you have to just, if you want to say create a documentary, a feature doc, you have to build those skills yourself.
Exactly.
And, nobody's going to do it for you.
Nobody is.
Nobody. Yeah.
Nobody is.
The good thing is now that it's easier than it ever has been to pick up a camera and just start filming.
Was when you were making that, was there anything that surprised you? That if you were going into something with, I guess, a certain direction, and then, or like a happy mistake, that a happy mistake happened? Yeah,
because I think you go into a project and you have a vision kind of for what it's going to feel like and look like. It's hard to say what the content is going to be. Although I've mapped out, and I had all these notes in a notebook, a moleskin that I had, and I still have that journal, and you go back to it and you're like, yeah, none of that made it into the movie. That's the most surprising thing, is that you plan as much as you can, and I think that's a really good thing to do. But this is the old Mike Tyson quote where everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So that's what this documentary was for me. It was just going out there, just starting to conduct these interviews. Along the process, doing, we maybe had 5-6 interviews up front. A couple were good. A couple, it didn't really fit with what we were doing. And then realizing, shit, we need a hell of a lot more interviews. I don't have, how am I going to tie this together?
Oh, shit.
So then it's like doing like 20 more interviews on top of what we just shot.
How long were the interviews each about?
Not terribly long. The one with Patrick Roan was the longest. That was 3 hours maybe. The shortest some of them were 15, 20 minutes, because we had them at a bookstore. So we just interviewed them real quick. Most of them on average were about an hour. I like to keep the interviews to about an hour to an hour and a half, think you get everything you need. So it was a learning. I mean, every aspect of the film, especially bringing it all together, was a learning lesson for me.
Of course.
And it was tough, but. And when I finished it, I don't know about you, but I was like, I'm never going to do this again.
That's the same thing, yeah.
I was like, that's it. That's the last
this.
documentary I ever make. And then, a couple months go by and you're like, I guess I could do that again.
Do another one. Yeah.
Because it's about challenging yourself.
Yeah, I feel, I need to do something. Because I haven't been working on my own stuff recently. So I feel like, I'm getting to that point where there's a little boiling inside me. I'm like, I need to do something creative for myself.
Do you want to get back into that?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to get back into YouTube, but just like for fun, just creating little things here and there.
Right.
A couple like a year or two ago, I just made like a small little mini doc about handing out hygiene kits for the homeless. Because a buddy of mine, Sebastian, he would collect toiletries from hotels, and then he told me about, hey, I'm doing this little thing where I saw someone make bags of toiletries and hand out to the homeless. I'm like, that's awesome. Let's make a little mini doc. And I would love to do more stuff like that.
Yeah,
that just has
great.
Purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, it's the intent behind it. And it reminds me a lot of meditation. And I try to meditate quite a bit. But the whole mentality going into it is like, don't have any expectations. Don't try to get something out of it. And when you're just trying to make content for the sake of making content, and just because you got to keep making content, sometimes you can lose your way and not really make something that's actually meaningful.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
There's videos of me dancing in a diaper.
You know what? There's a balance, though, because some of that stuff you're making just for fun. And I think there's a place for that. Especially, that's the balance between making stuff that's trying to make people laugh versus trying to make them think or trying to make them trying to get a different emotional response out of people.
Hell yeah.
Which, I mean, they both have their challenges. Well, how do you feel about because I feel like YouTube has a different comedic element and comedic tone than most other places on the planet.
Yeah, I don't know how to articulate all this because, when I scroll through Instagram, you'll see Instagram comedians, and then you'll click and watch it, and you're like, that was funny. What people find funny nowadays is very. I mean, I don't know where it comes from. It's because I feel like kids are growing up with YouTube comedy, which can be also very toned down and not really structured or based off of anything. But what we grew up on was, TV shows and stuff that was scripted and whatnot. So I feel like we perceive comedy, we absorb comedy in a different way. And now I feel like, what people think is funny, the younger generation, I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. That's like...
Yeah, I never thought I'd be that guy, but I'm like, these kids, man, like comedy does evolve. And I think that's something that people don't realize, especially the different forms. And my friend Nate is a comedian in Vietnam, and he started out doing stand-up in Philly. And he talks about the difference between Vietnam comedy and United States comedy. And comedy over there can be a little bit like, hey, I'm telling a joke. This is a joke. Here's the setup. Here's the punchline, where everybody knows that they're going to a show, and it's a little bit exaggerated, a little bit more over the top, as to where somebody would see him perform here and they would say it's cheesy.
Yeah.
Or it's just like, I don't know, it's a little hacky, right? So even in different parts of the country, comedy has evolved in different ways.
Yeah, it's totally evolving.
All right, so do you want to do, this is a segment.
Okay.
And it's called Quick Questions.
Oh, shit, okay.
Yeah. Quick questions, not quick answers. So,
Okay.
I mean, unless you want it to be.
Okay, so I can actually think about it?
Yeah, you
a little
can
bit?
think
Okay,
about
cool.
it, yeah.
Well, I'll take my damn time.
Yeah. So, the first question, how do you deal with criticism?
Ooh, I love it. I love criticism.
Yeah?
I think, well, my film is a big example of that, is that when I was screening with friends, we did a screening, and one of my buddies was like, this is so bad. I was like, he's like, you're missing like an A storyline or a B storyline.
Right.
And at that point, I felt like I was done, and he ripped me to shreds, and it hurt. But I love criticism. I can take it because it's an opportunity to grow. And so from there, we shot for 2 days. We figured out what was missing, shot for 2 days, and fixed it. So for me, criticism is always a way to grow.
Yeah, I feel like you have to look at criticism as feedback, and sometimes you get bad feedback, sometimes you get good feedback. Sometimes the feedback comes from a YouTube comment, sometimes it comes from your mom, and you have to know when to take it to heart, when to actually make change based on that feedback. The one thing I want people to know, especially when they're starting out, is that like you just have to get over that first hurdle of getting bad feedback. Because I think once you can start to accept it and just kind of shrug it off when you have to and keep making work. Like, I don't want people to get held up when they first start to get some bad feedback, because you're gonna get it. Like, if you start making anything worth watching, people are gonna shit all over it.
Of course, and you can't please everybody.
You can't.
I mean, there's 8 billion people in the world. Like, granted, not 8 billion people are watching, but you would drive yourself crazy trying to please everybody.
Absolutely. What skill do you think everyone should learn, or what do you think is an underestimated skill today?
In terms of filmmaking?
It can be anything. It can be for filmmakers, but it could be across the board.
Oh, damn. Well, in terms of filmmaking, I think editing. I think editing is probably what has helped me become a better director, a better DP, a better storyteller, is because with, when you have all that footage, you're solving a puzzle, and it can be solved in many different ways. So whenever anybody asked me, like, what should I work on? Or I was like, work on editing, because you'll be able to attack every project from a director's perspective.
To add to that, I will say edit your own footage, because editing your own footage early on, you're like, dude, like, why didn't I hold that shot longer? Especially if you have a camera that's got a zoom on it, you're just gonna be popping in and out, in and out, and then you're not gonna have any decently held shot. So editing your own footage is really gonna help you understand what you actually need on a shoot. But I think you're completely right. Editing, and that's one of those skills that is not going to be outsourced anytime soon.
Oh yeah,
and it is
some AI technology can edit your videos.
Yeah, exactly. But that's really great advice. A lot of people get a little bit intimidated by editing, but if you look at most of my projects, if you look at minimalism, it's straight cuts. Yeah. Dude, I did maybe a couple fade to blacks. Yeah, and then rest were just flares. Cuts. Yeah. But it's like sometimes people get a little bit intimidated that they feel like they need to learn all these effects. They see the cool flashy stuff and think they have to do that, but
sometimes you don't need it.
Sometimes you don't need it. Let's say somebody's stuck. What one thing can they do today to get unstuck?
I think the key is Nike. Just do it, man.
Nike, just do it.
It really is. Yeah. It's the times that I have been stuck and I just didn't do anything. I accomplished nothing. But when I said, fuck it, I'm just going to go out, pick up my camera, start recording something, and then boom, I have a video, and then I upload it, and I feel that release. It's because I overcame that obstacle. So it really is just not thinking about it too much, and just don't even go in with a plan. Just start creating something, whatever it is.
More important, I imagine, to associate that sense of relief and that sense of gratification from clicking upload versus getting views, right? You can't be triggered by the views, and that the success to me is, it's continuing to make stuff and make as great of stuff as you can.
Yeah, and it's being able to say, this didn't exist, a couple hours ago, but now I have something. And
how do you face doubt?
Doubt. Give me an example. Doubt.
Well, I guess it's like we were talking about when you were starting to slow down with the YouTube videos. I imagine, was there any doubt there where you kind of second guessed yourself before you uploaded videos? And now when you're working on a project and you're about to put it out there, how do you overcome that?
It kind of goes back to just doing it as well, is because even in my job now, I have to create 3 videos a week. And there's only so much goes on in an office of people constantly working. Is that what I've realized, again, is just when I pick up the camera and start filming, things naturally just happen. So whenever I'm in like a state of like, what am I going to do? What am I going to film? It is just the action of you picking up that camera or you just moving in a I don't know, just doing it. I hate saying the Nike.
Do it.
Nike line.
For everything consumerism has gotten wrong, Nike got that one right.
Nike got that one damn right. It is so true. It's because if you don't do anything, you're just going to keep sitting there. But.
Yeah. What one thing should people watch, listen to, or read before they go to bed tonight?
Before they bed.
Might freestyle again after this. So what one thing should people watch before they go to bed?
Watch before they go to bed. Maybe some Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. That doc, you saw the Netflix doc?
Yep.
Pretty damn good.
Enjoyed that. I don't know, something just to feed the soul.
Feed the soul.
I feel like you should end every day with a little bit of something that's going to, push you into the next day, and kind of like a tool that'll bring you for that you can start the next day with.
How about read? Anything that you would?
I love me some Wayne Dyer. You ever
Wayne Dyer.
read some Wayne Dyer?
No.
I love Wayne Dyer. I've read a bunch of his books, but yeah, again, it's a little
Wayne
bit
Dyer. What is he about?
He does a lot of spiritual stuff,
Oh, cool.
on that side. But he wrote a book called Power of Intention, which I think we talked about a few times. Is if you go into something with intention, then you end up creating whatever that intention is. You know?
Great. All right. So last question. People want to get connected with you.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Where do they go?
All right. I don't do as much YouTubes, but when I do, you can find it at youtube.com/JoeNationTV. Twitter, JoeNationTV. Instagram, JoeNation_. Those are my main little babies that I feed.
Awesome.
And then
Great, man.
pretty
Thank you so
cool.
much for
Yeah,
coming on
buddy.
the show.
Thanks.
This is fun.
Was fun.
Yeah. Too bad we didn't have video for it.
Yeah, it's okay.